New Year's holiday, government-wise. So, Happy New Year, folks.
Happy New Year. Cheers.
Cheers.
Clink the glasses.
And many more. Clink, 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 clink.
Okay, if you'll notice, you hear another voice with us. That is my son, Ryan.
Hi.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, people.
Hi.
And here is his mother.
Hi.
And as you can tell, we're filming this outside in the backyard.
Yes.
We feel like having backyard time with the fire.
Here we are.
Tonight, we are going to discuss something that I found really interesting because I let Ryan decide.
It's true.
Ryan, why don't you talk to us about this? But before we start that, let's talk about tonight's cocktail.
It is called the Neon Mermaid.
The Neon Mermaid.
The Neon Mermaid.
If that tells you anything about tonight's topic.
Yep.
So it's a combination of Valley Forge vodka from Pennsylvania. I have some melon liqueur, some blue curacao, splash of OJ, splash of simple syrup, and a splash of pomegranate juice. Stirred over ice and garnished with pineapple.
Yes.
And a mermaid tail.
And a mermaid tail. You will see a picture of it later.
And sparkles.
And it does sparkle. I did put some glitter in there.
Yes, so if the title of the beverage did not give it away, tonight's topic is all about mermaids.
Yes, mermaids. So how did you discover mermaids? What made you so interested in this particular creature?
I was always into mermaids when I was little, like Disney, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, all that stuff just really like sparked my interest with all the fantasy stuff. And there was just something about them that I just couldn't quite understand what I loved so much. Maybe it was just kind of like the fantastical element of like a mythical creature with half a body of a human and the other half of a fish. I'm not sure what it was, but I just knew that they were always something that I was like really, really passionate about when I was a small kid.
Okay. Half fish. So there's mermaids and there's mermen, correct?
Yes, mer people.
Mer people.
People.
We gotta use the correct terminology here, guys, okay?
Mer people.
Think Neptune, Poseidon,
Triton.
Tritons, and they're tridents. Yes. Yeah. Think about that. Okay.
Aquaman.
Well, I don't think it comes.
Not a
He's
mer.
a
He's not a
mermaid.
merman.
No,
he's-
he's got feet. and
he's got legs.
He does live in the sea, I guess.
I mean, but he's more amphibious, I think.
Does he even have gills?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
know. But he has good lung capacity.
He does. He does.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the mermaids. They're not all Disney, are they?
No, mermaids are not all Disney. Basically, mermaids have a very interesting history because their origin kind of originates from different places all over the world because so many different countries have their own origins for mermaids. I'd say at least probably every continent has like an origin of mermaids, obviously except for like Antarctica. Like with Europe, they have sirens. With like Africa and Asia, they have like gods and goddesses that originated as like half people, half fish. So I think to really talk about mermaids, we have to start from the beginning.
Okay.
And I think the best way to do that is start from like probably like one of the earliest known forms of what would become a mermaid, and that is the sirens.
Okay. So tell me more about sirens. I've heard about these.
So basically, sirens, I think, originated in ancient Greek mythology. There's like several ways. There's like I think a few ways of like how they originated. Their best known iteration was in the Iliad, written by Homer, and that was it wasn't the Iliad. It was the Odyssey. It was the Odyssey, written by Homer when Odysseus and his men were traveling back home after the Trojan War. And they came across sirens, and the sirens were actually like mostly birds, and they had the heads of women, but they like had like these beautiful voices, and they would lure men and sailors to their death.
Right.
And so Odysseus knew that the sirens were coming, and so he had all of his sailors put beeswax in their ears, but he knew that no one would know what a siren sounds like and live to hear it because they always die.
Right.
So he had his men tie him up to his ship, and he told them, no matter how much I scream and want to get out, do not untie me so I can hear the sirens. And that's kind of where the whole idea of sirens came from, was from that myth. And there's like so many different iterations of what they are, because they're actually never described in the Odyssey. Like, there's no physical description of a siren. I think along the lines people just came to associate them with birds. But in some versions, like, they're just regular people, and in some versions they're mermaids. So it's like really dependent on what like this specific iteration is. But the most well-known version is them being half women, half birds. So that then kind of translated across the many years to them being half women, half fish, because in medieval times, when they had their art, some of the artwork that they had kind of had them having like the lower half of birds,
Right.
but it almost looked kind of like fishy, like scales, tails. It looked more like that as opposed to like feathers. So that's like one possible way that mermaids got their
Scales.
scales from the original bird sirens,
But no gills.
that we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. Okay.
And that's like one like possible way that mermaids kind of came to be. There's like a lot of different cultures around the world that have their own versions of mermaids, like in Mesopotamian mythology. They had like their, what was it? I think I'm totally gonna butcher this up. I think it's pronounced Oannes, a male fish god from over 5,000 years ago. That's like their version of a mer person. And then one of the earliest mermaid legends appeared in Syria around 1000 BC, when the goddess Atargatis dove into a lake to take the form of a fish.
I heard this story.
You did.
I did this. I actually did some research.
Look at you.
I know, right? I was just like, mermaids. Let me see.
But yeah, like a lot of the stories of these like people taking over these mermaid forms, they like kind of just like it happens to them randomly. Like water is involved. Like they'll either jump into water, they'll be submerged into water, and most of the time they're regular human beings. And then because water just was part of the equation, by some divine force, it just became mer people.
Okay.
And so like they're kind of like, it's like godly things that are being worshipped by people, and I think that's like actually pretty cool. But while I don't think there were actually any like illustrations of mermaids for a while until like the Middle Ages happened. So then by that point, people really didn't know what they looked like. It says here, the earliest depiction of a mermaid in England can be found in the Norman chapel of Durham Castle, built around 1078 by the Saxon stonemasons. And in that castle, there's actually a column that has a mermaid on it. And according to what I did when I was doing my research, that's like the earliest known depiction of a mermaid.
From 1060
1078 BC.
1078 BC.
Was it BC?
BC?
It just says 1078, so it's probably 80.
I'm hoping it's AD.
Yeah, it's probably 80. It's probably 80.
BC, yeah.
Yeah,
So are you saying that's the first statue made of them?
it's like the first, probably one of the earliest known like artwork,
Wow.
I would say, of a mermaid, because the Middle Ages obviously didn't happen until like the 1300s, and by that point the artwork was kind of like really abstract, if you will. So
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard to know for sure whether or not those were mermaids or not. We can just kind of base that off of like what they look like, and kind of how that would then further the mermaid picture from going from bird to fish.
Right.
But according to what I've been researching, the 1078 Saxon stonemasons were the first to make like a mermaid picture.
Did you see a picture of it? I mean,
Yeah.
Can you describe what it kind of looks like?
So basically what it looked like was, it was this kind of like, it had a very circular face, and it had like, its tail was like to the side, and it was kind of like crisscrossed It was kind of like had its arms out like this. It almost kind of looked like a precursor to like what the Starbucks logo looks like. It didn't have the two tails or anything, but it kind of like had that same like general like body position, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, pretty interesting little bit about that. But what I think is really interesting about mermaids that not a lot of people know about is they are not like the Disney version, Little Mermaid that we
Oh no, not Ariel, huh?
No, they are not Ariel. There's like several hundreds, thousands of years of history of people writing about either their experiences with mermaids, like sailor stories of mermaids, and I'd say probably majority of the time the mermaids are trying to kill people. And
Yeah,
so,
they're not very nice, were they?
no, they're not nice creatures. Like they basically use their voice to try and kill sailors and then eat them. Definitely
Well,
not.
you gotta eat, you gotta live,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, listen, they gotta eat somehow, so that was what they did.
Humans make good eating.
That's what I hear.
I'll pass on them.
Because according to sailor folklore, mermaids represented both good fortune and disaster. As sailors spent months, sometimes years, traveling across the oceans, it's not surprising that beliefs or superstitions of figures controlling the weather would appear in nautical stories over the centuries. So, like a lot of the times when there was bad weather at seas, they believed that it was the fault of mermaids.
Of course. Mermaid. Caused by a woman.
Yep.
Jeez,
Nikki?
if it
I got a
wasn't,
problem with that.
Yeah, I do too.
there wasn't krakens in the sea, it's mermaids also that are trying to eat you.
Well, you know, they also used to have mermaids in like those really old historical maps where they'd have like drawings of like sea monsters.
Oh, yeah.
There's
They
a
would always
mermaid.
draw mermaids in there too to show like the potential things,
Dangers.
that you might come across
I also
in the
read
open waters.
I read a thing while I was doing my little bit of research. I read that Christopher Columbus may have spotted
He
one.
did. That is actually a pretty well-known account of a mermaid. Was Christopher Columbus when he was sailing to the Americas, did in fact discover what he thought to be mermaids. To this day, we don't know for sure what they were, if he even
Right.
really saw them or not. It's kind of up for debate. And even though we don't really celebrate Christopher Columbus,
No, we don't.
anymore.
He was busy.
He was not a good person.
Yeah, he was a bit of an ass.
Yeah, I'd say that's about accurate. So that retelling is kind of a little questionable. I want to say John Smith might have also written about possibly seeing mermaids when he came over as well. Lots of people saying when they saw the mermaids that they were not as attractive as they originally thought to believe.
Of course they weren't.
Um,
So
yeah.
they're monsters, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, there's so many different ways that even if mermaids are real, who knows what they look like. My best guess is if they were real, they probably do not look the way we think. I'm assuming they're probably more kind of like in the style of a fish of being like one color, not having any hair,
Gills. And not a more of a fish-like mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably pointed teeth, too.
Probably more like humanoid, but not necessarily like having like the complete normal upper torso of
Right.
a human. Like they probably like have webbed
Webbed fingers. I see some fins on the back
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because they got to steer.
And they have to adapt to like living underwater. I mean, like if you're like sentient enough to almost be like a human, you have to know how to like adapt to living underwater.
Yes. They evolved that way.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting that a lot of like superstitions about the ocean were like associated with mermaids. And fun fact, the reason we get the term sirens like for police cars and ambulances is from like the origin of sirens as well with their songs.
Ah, interesting.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
So the siren is going to your death.
That's actually where it came from. It's like the sirens calling you. That's where it came from.
Yeah, it's like when police siren comes to hear a car. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to my death.
Yeah, but I think it's like really cool that mermaids have like such this like interesting origin. But I'd love to like talk about like kind of like some more like other aspects of them, kind of like little tidbits as well.
Like Jeff wants to know how they reproduce.
Oh, good question. So I've had to answer this question a lot of times, and I can confidently say that mermaids reproduce the same as fish.
That's what I'm thinking. It's a fish, Jeff.
Like they, when you think about it, they don't have human genitalia. Like
No.
they don't have that stuff down there. They have fish parts. So the only logical way for them to reproduce is to reproduce the way fish would, like lay eggs,
Right.
and so on and so on.
She lays the eggs, he comes along and fertilizes.
I got a question.
Oh no, Dad has a question.
From the Peanut Gallery.
It's like a goldfish when they poo. You always got that long string.
Yeah,
I wonder if that happens with mermaids too.
I can see it
It
happening.
probably does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be a big old one too.
So glad you brought that up.
First thing I thought of.
He's your husband. Your husband, Nikki.
That's why I agree.
Now,
Yes.
I was just wondering also, Vikings were pretty much seafarers too. Did they ever see any mermaids, or is there any?
I did not find anything on that. I'm confident that probably any sea travelers at some point might have stories about them.
So I know pirates did a
Oh,
lot.
pirates, absolutely, for sure. Like I'm.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like
that good?
especially like,
Sweet,
like-
fruity.
I heard
Pirate-
something about Blackbeard.
I do not know anything about Blackbeard and mermaids, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were any stories relating to the two. I wouldn't be surprised if there were any mermaids in the North Carolina seas at the
They're not?
times. There might be.
There might be.
We don't know yet. Only like what, 10% of the ocean has been discovered? Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah, this is true.
yeah, not much.
And who's going to actually stop these mermaids from going where they want?
Would you like to say what you've been wanting to say?
Mermaids are weird.
So
Why are mermaids weird?
They don't blink.
They don't blink.
Don't blink.
So this is from a show that my dad and I watched when I was little called The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. It was on Cartoon Network. Where to God, the people who made the show were on drugs when they did it because this show was freaking wild. And in one episode they had mermaids, and the Queen of the Mermaids didn't blink. Like just would stand there. She was like 100 feet tall. She just like stood there and was like watching this kid and his family. And she would give him mermaid wishes, but then his friend Captain Knuckles was like using all of the wishes.
That's funny.
And then she died, but then was reborn as a sky maid.
Oh, it's sky maid. We went from the water to the air.
Just like the Little Mermaid,
Yeah,
which we'll
but-
get to. Which we'll get to.
Yes, Little Mermaid turned into sea foam, though. Eventually.
See what?
I'll go.
We'll get to that.
We'll get there.
to that.
Seafoam.
Seafoam.
We'll get
Um,
there.
But yeah, that's
Little
where that
Mermaid.
came from. So ever since then, my dad and I have just been like saying mermaids are weird. And they are.
Years.
They are.
They are.
Weird compared to us.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh, that's weird.
But there's this really cool little fact that I was telling my parents about yesterday that they didn't know. There's actually a mermaid saint.
Really.
Yeah. There is an official feast day, January 27th, for the Saint Liban, who was a mermaid and she was baptized in Ireland.
Of course, she's in Ireland. Really?
That's what I said.
Yeah. So.
We'll dedicate that to Helen Marie.
Yeah.
So basically, Liban was this woman who was turned into a mermaid when a spring burst under her house to form Loch Neg something. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
It's Gaelic, huh?
It's Gaelic. Do not know how to pronounce that.
Gaelic.
Some funky
Um,
words.
and so basically, her father drowned by the gushing water, but she survived underwater in an underwater chamber, and as a result, she turned into a mermaid. And so, according to the myth, as a mermaid, she gets to live 300 years.
Wow.
Oh.
And so she was singing, and she caught the attention of who is it? During the time. Oh yeah, so she was basically called ashore by some guy. I think he was like a priest or a saint or something. Like she was called ashore by this guy, and she traded her 300 years of life to be baptized and given a Christian soul. So then she died instantly as soon as she was baptized.
Right.
And then she floated up to heaven as a mermaid saint.
Okay. The Sky Maid.
Yeah, she's a sky maid. You know, it's interesting. She had a dog who then turned into an otter.
Oh. Well, otters like the water.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like a interesting
cute.
little.
They like to hold hands.
They do like to hold hands.
Yeah.
Otters love to hold hands.
It's an otter thing.
But before we move on to like kind of like fictional famous mermaids, the last real life thing that I want to talk about is like mermaid hoaxes. This is actually a pretty interesting topic.
Fiji mermaid?
Fiji mermaids, not Fiji water.
No.
Fiji mermaids.
Yep.
So like basically, P.T. Barnum, who was like a circus guy,
Oh yeah.
terrible person by the way, abused
Animals.
animals and people. He wanted to come up with a new attraction for a circus, so he took a monkey carcass and a fish carcass, combined the two together, and came up with the Fiji mermaid. So you basically
It was a gaff.
it was a total gap. You're basically paying money to see two animal corpses cut in half, sewn together to look like a weird little creepy mermaid.
Actually, in Niagara Falls, they had a display of that, where they had this thing that was supposed to be a mermaid, but you know, somebody sewed the two pieces together, and they somehow put it in preservative, and it's in a display case somewhere in Niagara Falls. I remember seeing it when I was a little kid.
Isn't it creepy?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, I have this thing about, like, corpses and, like, dead things. So, like, seeing, like, a dead animals, like, on display like that just kind of, ooh.
Taxidermy.
No, they weren't even taxidermy. They're just, like, they just, like, look so weird. like Fiji mermaids make me, like, really uncomfortable. So, I avoid looking.
It was done badly, for one thing.
Like, I avoid looking at pictures of them because they're just really, really creepy. Go ahead, go look at it.
That's what I'm doing.
The Fiji mermaid, they're not pretty.
They're very ugly.
They're not pretty at all.
So yeah, that was like a really, and it wasn't just PT Modern. It was like other like circuses
Right.
around, probably around the world, most definitely in the United States. We're coming up with like these like fake mermaids, try and like
Yeah, because
advertise.
people were kind of gullible then too. A little bit more gullible.
Oh, you're looking at pictures?
You betcha.
It's not pretty, is it?
Kind of like they made a jackalope. They kind of just.
Well, Jackalope's
Oh no!
actually-
Look at like actual like pictures on the internet.
Let me see. Yeah.
That is a Fiji mermaid.
And that one too. That one too.
Okay, here's another one. Fiji mermaid. Up close. There it is. We got stuff in the back, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's a Fiji mermaid. They're totally not real. Not absolutely no actual scientific proof of mermaids on that end. Like I said, are mermaids fully not real? Who's to say? I don't know. I'm not here to say that any of the stuff talked about on this podcast is real or not. As I said earlier.
And it's all real, Ryan. Come on.
As I said earlier, only a little bit of the ocean has been discovered, so who's to say that mermaids aren't real? But moving on to like fictional mermaids, obviously we all know Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I'm very excited to see the live action one coming out in May with my mom. Very excited to see Halle Bailey as Ariel.
Haley Berry, some Ariel?
Not Halle Berry,
Oh.
Halle Bailey.
Oh, sorry.
I would not want to see Halle Berry as Ariel.
Why not?
She's pretty.
She
But
is.
she's like 50 something.
Yeah, she's kind of.
Thanks.
She's a little bit long in the tooth to be playing a mermaid.
Well,
Just to be playing a mermaid. I mean,
well, they live to be like what, 300 years old?
Yeah,
So-
but
No, that's not.
but
That's young.
They don't look that old though. Kind of thing.
But anyway,
She's in her
so
50s. I mean, Nikki, your son is insulting us.
I'm sorry. I'm
Every
sorry.
day.
I'm older than your mother. You know this.
I'm sorry.
I'm older than everybody else here. Everybody.
Pretty much.
I'm tailing right behind you, Paige, so it's no big deal.
No, but I'm sorry. No,
What you what? 58.
57.
I love Halle Berry, but Halle Bailey, who's like I think 22, she's playing Ariel.
Oh, okay.
Who's Halle Bailey?
She was
Whatever her
in.
name
She's
is.
in a girl group, Chloe X Halle. It's like fairly recent,
Oh.
and there was actually a bit of controversy with her casting because she is black, and
Ah.
Scandalous.
And so there was a lot of controversy over her being cast as Ariel because a lot of people were upset that a black woman was taking over the role of a fictitious fish woman who sings with a Jamaican crab and a drag queen sea witch. So clearly there is so much deep
And
rooted.
combs her hair with a fork.
Clearly it's just the realism is just so apparent that we're just like, it's so bad to get. So I'm so excited to see this movie. But anyway, The Little Mermaid itself is actually based off of a pretty dark and sad story by Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah, I mean, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, she got
fucked.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. She did get fucked.
She got like royally fucked.
And she did it to herself, though.
I mean, what's crazy to me is like story. She was like 15 years old. She went to the surface for the first time, saw the prince, rescued him. I was like, oh my god, I'm in love.
It's infatuation.
It's infatuation. And then she went to the sea witch, and in the movie, she just like, has her voice like taken out of her and it goes into Ursula's shell necklace. No, in the story, her tongue gets chopped off. And the potion she's given to become a human says that she feels like she's walking on knives and broken glass.
Every time she takes a step.
Every single time she takes a step.
Because of the, she's not, legs are not natural for her.
No, legs are not natural. She's used to having her tail. And so she is absolutely heartbroken when she finds out that the prince that she did all of this for is going to marry another woman. And so she's like, oh my god, I'm going to die, because her contract with the sea witch said that if the prince fell in love with someone else, she was going to turn into sea foam.
Right.
And so the Little Mermaid was like, oh my god, what am I going to do? So then her sisters come up and they all chop their hair in exchange for a magic knife to give to the mermaid. And if she kills the prince, then she will turn back into a mermaid and she'll get her voice back and she can come live with her family. So she has the knife. She goes to the prince while he's asleep on his wedding night, by the way.
Yes.
And she sees how happy he is with his wife and how peaceful he's sleeping with her. So she doesn't do it. And so as the sun rises, she jumps into the water and dissolves and turns into sea foam and essentially kills herself. And in some versions of the story, that's where it ends. But I think in other versions, she is ascended into heaven by a bunch of air spirits, and she becomes a daughter of the air, and it's said that if she does, I can't remember if it's either 300 good deeds or 300 years of good deeds, she can get a soul.
Something like that.
Something like that, because mermaids aren't born with souls. And so she's good for like a really long time, then she'll get a soul. And I think there's also the chance that she can go back to Earth as a human, but she has to like do a lot of busy work to, get on God's good side to get that reward. Right. I think that was just a concept that Disney thought would be too hard to explain to children.
Did not know that.
Something you should be working on, my friend. Busy work with God.
Henry's fine.
Yes, my busy work with God.
There was another movie
Henry's
back in the
fine.
80s called Mermaid with, I think Tom Hanks is in it.
I love
Splash!
Oh, I love Splash!
I love that movie.
Oh, Daryl Hannah.
Yes, and she comes out and she's devouring this lobster, like with everybody else is eating nice and prim and proper, and she's like, just.
No, but remember
devouring
when
it.
she came onto land for the first time? She was butt naked on the Statue of Liberty. And that's how she was discovered. Everyone was taking pictures of her.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. I love Splash. But yeah, that's like kind of like all I had about mermaids. So if you guys have any other questions, I'd love to answer
Jeffrey,
them.
I know you got questions.
Yes, and ask your questions.
Besides the reproduction one.
Huh?
Besides the reproduction, which we've already gone for that one.
Yeah. Man, I don't know, because I think I asked all my questions, because I kind of knew about mermaids anyways as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kind of knows a little bit.
Yeah.
I know in Asia was it in Japan they had their version of one?
There's this one being of a mermaid that they have in Japan that is, I think, pretty much almost a ginormous fish, just with the head of a human.
Yeah.
And it's like 35 feet long.
Damn.
Wow.
And that's like one of their versions of a mermaid. Obviously we have the Starbucks mermaid, and that actually originated from medieval drawings of mermaids that had two tails. And that is where we got the Starbucks mermaid. I don't think a lot of people know that she's a mermaid. Because I think in like recent years, Starbucks actually has been like promoting like mermaid merchandise in their stores. My Starbucks on my campus sells a lot of Starbucks cups with scales, like mermaids on them and stuff. But like for a while, I didn't know she was a mermaid. I know, I didn't know. I just thought she was the thing just holding up something. I didn't know it was her tail. Her tails.
Ryan, bless your heart.
I know, bless my sweetheart.
Yes, bless your cotton picking heart.
Well, that's real Southern.
Southern as it can get.
I can tell you I'm from the South.
No kidding.
Yeah, but do you have any questions about mermaids?
But the Japanese one also, didn't they? If you ate it, you would get immortality, I think.
If you ate a mermaid?
That probably sounds right.
Yeah, it's like, but it would also lure you to your death, or you to fight.
Honestly, luring people to their death is probably just like one of the most probably well-known things mermaids are known for, just because they're just hungry. They're just trying to get food.
Exactly.
I mean, listen, they have these beautiful, beautiful voices, and they're just using them as just a means to get by. They're not trying to purposely, kill people that we know of.
I guess a variety to their diet, for one.
Exactly. Like otherwise they'd just be eating like seafood the whole time. Like give them a chance to get some meat on, like some other meat on their bones.
Yeah, why not?
I'm just saying,
Yeah, I'm down with it.
But I think what's interesting though is a lot of people kind of got mermaids and sirens mixed up for the while. And like as someone who's like done research on it, like I know them as like two separate
You're right.
things. But a lot of times people just always thought that they were just one thing, and that siren was just another word for mermaid.
I think they kind of merged at some point.
They did merge, but they definitely initially were not that. Like they definitely were two separate things. Whether or not a siren came before, like what a depiction of a mermaid is to be debated, because like written records and art is so subjective depending on what we can find and scrounge for. So who's to say which actually came first?
Right. Your dad.
Siren or the mermaid? Which one's it gonna be?
Yep.
Henry's on his phone. What are you looking for, Henry?
Huh? I was just looking at the Starbucks mermaid. Yeah.
Making sure it's still a mermaid?
Look at the genitals on that one. It's quite a trout that young man's carrying.
Doga.
Was
God.
it a male mermaid then?
Yeah, it had to have been.
Oh, you ought to hear our conversation sometimes.
But kind of steering the conversation back to the topic at hand. In more recent years, apparently there's like, I don't know if there's actually been like any recent like mermaid sightings. They're kind of like not as frequent nowadays, but I think it was in Israel. There was in like 2009. There was this reward posted for anyone who could prove the existence of mermaids would get like $1 million or something.
Wow.
And there's like quote unquote footage of a mermaid.
Right.
Who's to say how accurate it is and how much of it is edited?
Right,
or not?
CGI and yeah.
Because you can attest to this. In I think it was like 2012, Animal Planet came out with this documentary called Mermaids: The Body Found.
Yeah.
And I swore I thought that it was a real documentary. And I thought it was real because I really thought like these scientists were real people and they actually found like mermaid remains and were like proving that mermaids were real. What I didn't know it was that it was all fake.
It faked a lot of people out too.
It faked a lot of people out, and I was one of the people. I was like in 4th grade. 5th grade.
And did it break your little heart?
It did break my little heart because I was like, I really thought that mermaids were real, and like the way they advertised it, it was very deceptive. It was very, very deceptive.
Oh, that's advertisement for you.
Like they they did not say this is like a what if. They had like a what if situation. I probably still would have enjoyed it.
Right.
But I wouldn't have been so gullible. But I still could have gotten like enjoyment, like being like, oh, like let's see like a scientific point of view, like what could be,
Right.
even if it's not real. They were like, no, this is real. I'm like, you lied to me. You lie.
Pull that carpet right out from underneath your feet.
Ryan, I'm sorry that the media lied to you.
Not the media lie?
I know, can you believe?
But yeah,
The media
that-
never lies. Do
Never.
they, Jeffrey? Especially the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
but that was like my kind of like being like, oh my god, I don't know what to believe anymore. What if mermaids aren't real? So yeah, Animal Planet just. I trusted you. I trusted you so much. And that now I don't even know if Finding Bigfoot was real. Who knows? Who's to say?
Bigfoot, we believe.
I believe.
We
but-
believe.
I believe in Bigfoot. I don't
Bigfoot.
believe in Finding Bigfoot. That show.
Okay.
Oh, the show itself.
Oh, we gotta do the Bigfoot episode. That's gonna be.
I was telling him, I was like, you guys need to do a Bigfoot episode, an episode on the chupacabra. And
We did chupacabra.
We have.
We've done cryptids. We just haven't done the big cryptid of Bigfoot.
You haven't done Bigfoot. That's like gotta be like a big episode.
That's gonna be. I'll get our friend over here. Get that going.
That's gotta be like at least an hour-long episode.
And we're gonna have but there's a lot to delve into with Bigfoot.
There is.
I mean-
Absolutely. But
I was
getting
also-
back to mermaids.
Yes, back to mermaids. Did you got that itch?
I believe.
You believe in mermaids?
Absolutely.
All
Do I
right.
think they're as cute and cuddly as they portrayed in the Disney? No.
No.
Do they comb their hair with a fork? No. Do they eat fish out of the wild? Yes.
Eat or be eaten.
Yeah.
My question to you: do you think that they can sing?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard some voices on animals before, so anything is possible.
Oh my god, I almost completely forgot to talk about this. Like literally, this almost slipped my mind. Manatees. We need to talk about manatees.
Yes.
So like for the longest time, it was believed that like some of these mermaids that like sailors were seeing were actually manatees.
Right.
And that the reason why they were like, oh, they were so ugly was because they were manatees, which
Right.
are adorable, by the way. They're not
The-
ugly.
They look like Uncle Fester.
Well, yeah.
Like elephants of the sea.
Yeah, they're just
Just
big
with
lumbering
fins.
things. They're kind of cute.
They're cute. I mean, like, listen, if I'm a sailor going months and months at sea without any human interaction besides my mates, and I pass by, you know, a rock in the middle of the ocean has some manatees just chilling on it, I might mistake it for mermaids if it's at a distance.
At a
if you will.
distance.
And you know, maybe the manatees were making some noises that the sailors thought were a little melodic.
Well,
Who's
you
to
never know.
say? Who's to say if they were actually
I
mermaids?
don't know what a manatee sounds like.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, when you move to Florida, maybe you can find out.
We will, and I will let you know. Well, by the look on the clock, it's about that time, folks. I want to thank my son Ryan for all of his wonderful work.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Done good. You
I definitely want to
good.
come back for another episode.
Oh, we'll do another one for sure. We will definitely get you back on your breaks and
Hey, listen, I'll be here in Smarch
smart,
and over the summer, so.
cool beans. We'll make something happen, and we'll also remember this is part of your education. Cocktails.
There is always time for a cocktail.
Yes, especially since we're teaching this young man how to drink properly.
Because he turned the big 2-1.
He's considering he don't want to drink anything off the bottom shelf, top shelf only,
He's never been a bottom shelf boy.
and we're going to make sure of that.
Well, folks, again, I want to thank all of our listeners.
Do we have any new countries?
Do we have any new countries?
I haven't looked lately, but we can find that out later.
All right. Well,
Oh, Iceland. We've been to Iceland.
well, I know. I want to thank our new listeners in Iceland and Sweden, Austria, the good old USA, and around the world.
Yeah, since we are global now.
We are.
We want to get some good global ghost stories for y'all.
Yes.
And until next time, Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy New Year.
There we go.